Come on. There it goes. Good morning, Sonder fam. My video did not want to come on there for a second. I was like, come on, turn on video. Welcome, welcome everyone to our 1st of March. Happy March, everyone. Our monthly setup. We're going to work on setting up March. I know some of you I saw in the chat said that you were here yesterday as well, or maybe you were even here Friday for the monthly setup, and that is absolutely fine. We love it. You can come to as many of these monthly setups, as many of these weekly setups as you want. I know some people like to spend a lot of time in the chat for one of them, kind of chatting and catching up with folks. Oh, Amanda, welcome for your first monthly setup. Um, some people like to kind of nose and journal for the first one, and then they kind of hang out in the chat. It's always fun to kind of see and what everybody else is doing, see some different examples. So it's so great. Again, you are welcome to come as many times. And we do have one more monthly setup tomorrow evening, I believe. So just so you know, there is another one. And we do have a weekly setup tonight and then a weekly setup on Monday morning. It was kind of a busy weekend. And I know our fabulous facilitator, Jennifer O, has been facilitating a lot of those, and she's been helping me out with some of them to facilitate, because I know some of you may know if I had posted in Sonder Club and talked a little bit about it in the chat when I was on Friday night. But my husband had finally had his appendectomy on Friday. He had gone into the emergency room in early January, and they made him wait for whatever reason. They put him on antibiotics and wanted things to kind of be cleaned up to go in and do the laparoscopic appendectomy, or as he likes to call it, the lappy appy. And so he finally had that Friday, and he was only scheduled to be in there for about an hour. And an hour went by and no word. 2 hours went by and no word. 3 hours went by and no word. I was getting a little nervous there in the waiting room. Finally, the doctor came out after about 3 hours and 15 minutes to tell me that he was doing okay. He was doing fine, but it was a lot worse in there than what they thought it was. There was a lot of adhesions on his intestines, and things had moved around. And of course, he showed me all the gross pictures. And I was talking to Bailey. We were talking about this before we, hopped on, and we were like, "It's not like a car where you have to show me the damaged part for me to believe that there was a problem. Like, I'm good. I believe you. I believe you. There was a problem." Um, but he also had to have a drain put in, which is also really gross. So I have to kind of deal with that. And so we didn't get to go home until like 4:30 on Friday night. And then Saturday morning, um, at like 6 o'clock in the morning, I come downstairs, haven't even had my coffee, and he's standing there in the kitchen, and there's drops of blood all over the floor. And he's like, "I think we have a problem." And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I haven't even had my coffee. I don't even know what's happening." And so we had to go to the ER, and they just really had to kind of bandage and package things up and put that on. But it was just one of those, I wasn't really quite prepared for all of that. So, but he is doing much better. Thank you all for your thoughts to get him healed and better. He is doing better. He slept pretty good last night and feeling pretty good. We did end up going for a little walk yesterday afternoon. It was because it was 70 degrees here in Colorado, because why wouldn't it be that at the end of February? I'm so jealous of everybody with the snow, but I guess it was good I didn't have to deal with the snow driving him to the hospital in the ER. But yeah, it is a little intense. It was not quite what I had anticipated, but I'm also glad that we decided to postpone. We were going to go to Morocco in the middle of March, and we had decided to postpone that when he had to. We knew he was going to have the surgery, even though the doctor said, "Oh, it should be fine. You'll be recovered by then." I'm glad we did not, because I don't think he will be ready for international travel by then. So we'll do that eventually, but not right away. So that's been my exciting weekend. So hopefully yours has been not quite as intense, and I'm definitely ready for a new month for March. I kind of put up the March vibes. I saw some folks saying that their vibe, they wanted to trust their path. I like the idea of nurturing my safe place, choosing softness and appreciation for life, love and kindness for myself, healing in nature, cultivating calm and simplicity within. So hopefully you have some ideas of what you want your March vibe to be. I always like the beginning of a new month. I feel like it's a good time to kind of see how you want to maybe change things up, right? So it works out really well with our theme of change here for the month. And I do want to remind folks, just make sure that you switch if you're wanting to participate in the chat, you switch that little blue box. Make sure it says everyone. It has a really obnoxious tendency to default back to a host and panelist. And when that happens, it's only myself and my fabulous co-host that's with me here in the chat today, Bailey. We'll be the only ones who see what you write if you do that. So want to make sure that it's set to everyone. I did want to mention I showed this little slide there in the opening, but we do have a Women's Month celebration. March is International Women's Month. And so there is an exclusive event with Meha, and Jen O will be there. I'm not sure who's going to be kind of behind the scenes in the chat, but they will be there. So that's on March 11th at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. Bailey's going to drop the link in there if you want to register for that. There is a small fee for that because it's outside of the journal work. So just know that that's a fun little event there if you want to join us for that. And then just a few little community guidelines, a few little reminders, housekeeping rules here. Want to make sure this is a safe and supportive space. So we just ask that you're kind and courteous to both yourself and others. No promotions or spam. We respect everyone's privacy, no hate speech or bullying, limiting those repetitive product and accessory questions, remembering that we're here to set up March. So it's fine to maybe have a few questions about pins and stickers, but the best place for that really is in Sonder Club, where folks can post links and those kinds of things. Any of those customer care inquiries all go to our headquarters team. Bailey and I do not have access to your account, so we can't fix billing issues or mailing addresses or any of those kinds of things. So those all go to hello@silkandsonder.com. And then ultimately remember that these socials are a tool to help elevate your emotional health through the power of community, but ultimately you're responsible for your own emotions, well-being, and decisions. So if there's ever anything we're working on that just isn't your jam, if you're just not feeling it, whatever kind of things that we're working on, I know the setups are a little bit different because they're a little more technical in nature as opposed to sometimes the journaling prompt socials that we do where you feel like, but again, do what you need to do. If you need to drop off, if you need to just maybe hang out and play with the coloring page and work on your coloring page and not work on this. If the music I play isn't your jam, you can mute that. If my voice isn't your jam, you can mute me. We have closed captioning enabled. And I always love Nicole when she's here. She always says, Maya is always my jam. I always appreciate that. So thank you for that. Oh, and I saw Tanya saying, the gallbladder and a parathyroid. Actually, interestingly enough, Tanya, my husband has had his gallbladder removed. That was about 20 years ago. And he did have a parathyroid, one of his parathyroids removed. So those he recovered from fairly quickly, but I will say he was younger. The gallbladder was 20 years ago. So it is always one of those things where you're like, oh, sometimes you don't always recover as quickly as you would like to. So best of luck with that. I know surgery is just not a fun thing, right? No matter how routine or how easy doctors say it's going to be, it's just not a fun thing to have to deal with. So hugs to you for anybody who has to, potentially go through any of that, because it's just not fun. So this month's theme has changed, which I think goes so lovely with our theme of belief from last month. We're kind of transitioning into change. And I think this quote really speaks to that when it says, you have the power to change your life. Just start with changing your thoughts, and thoughts, AKA your beliefs, right? So we've been working on changing our beliefs. We've been working on changing our thoughts. We've been working on examining those and seeing how those play into our lives. And so now we're really going to talk about change and what change will look like for us this month. For some of us, it might be big changes we're making. For some of us, it might be small changes. Sometimes they're changes that we did not initiate, or we do not approve of these changes, but they're happening. So that's always the thing, right? The one thing that always happens in life is change. That's just what it does. And it can be frustrating. You can fight it. You can spend a lot of time being grumpy about it. You can have some really grumpy thoughts about it, or you can sit and think about it and know that this too shall pass, right? Things will continue to change. And how can you embrace that? How can you use that to make this the life that you want? So it takes some work. It's not easy, right? We're not saying that any of this is easy. And we're not saying that you're wrong to be frustrated by it, but it's one of those things where sometimes there's things that are outside of our control. So we just, like with my husband's appendix, right? We didn't, he keeps saying, I'm sorry that this happened. And I was like, what? You didn't make your appendix do this, right? Like it's not, there's no fault of your own, right? It's another change. It's another thing. Um, and then that's just how we're going to move forward. So I always recommend, if you have not had a chance, always tell folks at the beginning of the month, it is great to look at page 2. Meha, our founder, always writes us, we call it our little, like a little love letter, a little note from her mind, what she was thinking when she chose this particular theme for the month of March. And I really appreciated a couple call outs here. She talks about how change doesn't always need to be loud to be life altering, right? It can be something that's small that really can change things up, right? And then also change often arrives uninvited or uncertain, right? We can't always bring change in intentionally. Sometimes change is just something that happens and we have to figure out how to work forward with that. And then I really appreciated her quote at the end where she says, the women we're becoming rooted, radiant, and brave enough to change. And I think that's another really good thing to think about, right? We can be stubborn. We can dig our heels in and say, I'm not changing. I'm going to keep doing this. I don't care what else is happening. I'm not going to change. And that really isn't going to serve us well, right? We are going to be brave enough to change, brave enough to work through it, even though it's hard, even though it's sticky, even though it could be scratchy. We're going to move through that. And then she does ask you, I kind of put in the little box there. She says, I encourage you to ask yourself, what are you holding on to that's familiar? Or where are you holding on to what's familiar, even if it's no longer fulfilling, right? Being rooted, radiant, and brave, right? I think that those are some great feelings to hold on to. What might open up if you stopped resisting the invitation to grow? And I love that idea. When we refuse to change, maybe we're resisting that invitation to grow. Think of change as an invitation, right? An invitation to change, an invitation to grow, an invitation to become that rooted and radiant and brave woman. And if the change you're facing wasn't your choice, what if something greater is waiting on the other side, right? What if something more wonderful is there and you're avoiding it by avoiding looking at change? So great letter, great theme, I think, to reflect on for this month. So our agenda for today is, and we do have a little bit longer for these monthly setups, so we have an hour and 15 minutes. So just know that. And if you ever have to drop off early, totally understand. We do record these, so you're able to access this later if you want to review. Excuse me. So we're going to do, we always do a little monthly acrostic poem with the theme, and I'll give you some ideas for things you can do if you don't want to do the acrostic, or if acrostics aren't your jam. We're going to reflect on February. We're going to set our March intentions. We're going to fill out our mood tracker and our habit tracker, kind of get those set up for what that looks like for the month. And if you've been with me, you know that I always like to use these two little graphics from the artist, The Latest Kate. And she says a couple different things. One is there's room for you here just as you are, right? So if things are going great, you want to celebrate some things, you've got some exciting changes on the horizon, you want to talk about that, we are here for it. We love to celebrate, love to hear about the successes, fun things that are happening. But we know life isn't always fun, right? Sometimes your significant other has to have a surgery that you weren't quite planning on, and it doesn't go quite as easily as you thought it would. And there's those little bumps in the road, right? So we're here for you for that as well, right? Just as you are, you come as you are. You don't have to pretend. You don't have to put on a happy face, right? You're here for what it is. Or Amanda says, or your dog eats your pancake. Naughty dog. And the other one says, the way you feel matters, and no emotion you feel is bad or unworthy, right? So no one can tell you, oh, you should be happy about this change, or this should make you, excited. Our emotions are emotions, and we're just here to feel what we need, right? So we're going to dig into the theme. We're going to find a blank space in your journal. You could also do this on a scratch pad. You could do it on page 3 where the change definition is. Some people like to actually do it on that very first page 1 where it says notes, and they kind of write the word down in the little blanks, and then they kind of write it across wherever you want to do it. You could do it on a sticky note, right? And we're going to come up with 6 words or phrases for change. And then we're going to create this acrostic poem drawing upon your brainstorm list. So you could do sentences, You could do words, you could do sets of words, anything along those lines. So someone in the social on Friday, their acrostic, which I thought was brilliant and I love it, is currently having a new growth experience. So change is I'm currently having a new growth experience. I thought what a fun way to kind of think about that as you dig into this theme. And that really is the point of this acrostic, is to get you thinking about what does change mean to you? Like, where is that coming from? Right? Isn't that awesome? I love it. And I can't remember who did it, but I remember I scribbled it down really quick because I thought that was a super fun and so accurate, right? What if you change your belief as, ugh, change, it's hard, it's horrible, too. I'm currently having a new growth experience. Like, how's that working out for me, right? Maybe it's hard, maybe it's easy, maybe I need to mix things up a little bit. So here's some other ones, right? That also talks about change is hard, but rewarding. Humility makes it easier, and all adventures test our courage. Not wanting it, we stay on life's roller coaster. Getting off it, we need to take risks, and every breath is a new challenge of our belief. And if you want some synonyms for change, I've got some other ideas for words there. Of course, the little caterpillar to butterfly is a great symbol of change. That's our coloring page this month. So I think that perfectly encapsulates this idea. Courageously healing, awakening, new growth everywhere is also a really good one. Oh yeah, Amanda, I saw that you had found a woolly bear caterpillar and he's hibernating in your fridge right now. So that's always fun, like the little caterpillar to butterfly, right? So or you could also, if you don't want to use the word change, you could always make it a little acrostic for the month of March. So many weathers, atmospheric surprises daily, rain, snow, sleet, sunshine, wind, climate changes unexpectedly. Hello, springtime, right? Because we do get springtime this month. Spring does happen on March 20th. So at least on the calendar. For some of us, I feel like we've been in spring since January here in Colorado. And for some of you on the East Coast, I know you've been getting a lot of snow. So you're like, will spring ever come? If an acrostic poem's not your jam, maybe you want to write a little letter saying goodbye to February, hello to March. Or maybe you just want to make a little word cloud for the month, right? You just want to kind of come up with some words that is going to make you think of March. Maybe you just want to work on your definition on page 3, kind of whatever you're feeling as you work on this. So I'm going to be quiet. I'm going to play a little bit of music for you to work on. I will let you, I will kind of scroll through these. Feel free to share in the chat your poem or your letter saying goodbye to February, hello to March, kind of whatever works for you. And then we'll check back in and keep moving on. All right. Well, thank you all so much for sharing in the chat. There's lots of fun ones that folks have come up with. Love to see those. And we love it if you can post it in Sonder Club. Let other folks kind of see what you've come up with. I like Jennifer was saying she adds a word each time. So courage, hard days, allow yourself grace, new experiences await you. God is always with you. Everything you hoped for is near. That's a great idea. And it kind of makes a nice little stair step of the poem. So that's kind of a fun way to do that. So again, thank you all for sharing. And again, the point of this really was to just kind of give yourself that time to really dig into this idea of change and what we're gonna how we're gonna approach it this month. So let's dig into our journal and again, digging into March. The first thing we're going to do, as we always do, give ourselves some time to reflect on this month that has just passed. We are not going to go rushing madly into the next month. We are going to pause and think about what did February have for us. We're going to think about our wins, um, our challenges, our favorite moments. And then we're also going to then start to look forward and think about what do I want to start, stop, and continue? What am I going to take from this month? What am I going to stop doing that I've been doing? What do I want to continue? And what are maybe some things that I want to start in the month of March? So here's what the page looks like, right? So wins really are maybe something that you did, something that made you smile, made you happy, an accomplishment. I like to write how many, if I finished any knitting projects. I'm very happy to report I finished a couple hats this month, knitted a couple hats, and I finished my kaleidoscope quilt, my first quilt that it's not a full size one, it's a smaller one that I started back in 2013. And I finally took a couple classes with a friend and we worked on that and we finished it. So that was exciting. So that was definitely a win for me. Sometimes I'll write down like what books I read in the month, maybe how many days I got my step goal done. Um, any of those kind of wins for things that I did. Now, our challenges are things that didn't go right. Maybe it's something out of your control, a stumbling block, of frustration, right? So clearly, hubby's appendix was definitely a challenge this month. And also our cat, who was 19, our cat last year, we had two cats, and the one that was also same age, he passed away last year at this time, and now our little girl, who is also 19, is having some major dental issues that we are going to have to decide what we want to deal with. So that's definitely been a challenge, right? So illnesses, health issues are always a challenge. Budgeting has been a little bit of a challenge, trying to kind of slow down that impulse spending that we can kind of catch ourselves getting into. And then we had a power outage for like a whole day when people were out there. They're putting in a new fiber optics line or something, and they cut our power. They also cut our landline, which not that we use it that much. But that still hasn't been repaired. So that's definitely been a frustration. And then those favorite moments are just things that were kind of fun. They could be the same as your wins, right? So for me, we went to the Valentine's Marketplace up in the mountains, up at a little place up in the mountains, with my mom and hubby and my sister, and had a fun time. We got some fun canned vegetables and some fun soaps, and they had all sorts of fun stuff. So that was fun. And we had lunch afterwards, which was lovely. And then I also took my mom to see the musical Water for Elephants for her birthday. Her birthday is on Valentine's Day. So we went to see that. So those were definitely favorite moments. So kind of thinking of those things. And then dropping down to the what do I want to start, stop, and continue, right? So you want to start maybe something that's not being done, but you want to do, you've been thinking about doing. Maybe it's things to begin doing to get better results, things worth trying or experimenting with. So I've been thinking about, because, I do the pen pal list for our Sonder folks. And I've been thinking about, because I know a lot of people want to do some sort of a book club. So I've been thinking about setting that up on Fable, if anybody has the Fable app. So I'll put out some information about that, because I think I might want to do that, because I like talking to people. I like to read the same book as other people and talk about it. And I don't always have that opportunity in real life. So I thought that would be kind of fun. So look for more information about that coming up. And then stopping are those things that are not working, not helping, they're impeding, they're not practical, things that aren't delivering those desired results. things you dislike, things that don't serve you. So for me, it's really that mindless scroll. I get so bad on Instagram. My little phone will tell me at the end of the week, you spent 9 hours on Instagram this week. You spent 5 hours on Facebook this week. And I'm thinking, gosh, I could probably be doing a lot more fun and productive things than scrolling. So, kind of thinking about getting off the socials there a little bit, or giving myself some very tight limits for what I do. And then things we want to continue are things that are working well, things we want to keep, things we want to continue to see if they're worthwhile, things we like, things we need. Um, yeah, Radhika, the Glasgow quilt did get done finally, but it probably would have got done a lot sooner if I wouldn't have been scrolling through the phone. So these are all different kinds of ideas, and I'll show you. Here's some examples of things that people have done for the what do I want to start, stop, and continue. Maybe they want to start doing more walking and doing some 5K prep, stop wasting time on the phone, continue their Silk and Sonder practice. And then I really like the one in the middle. She has a really great way. She's got the what, the why, and the how. So, what, she wants to get into a regular morning routine. Why? Because better mornings to start each day. And then how, set up a specific routine in order. So, I did for the stop. Corey, is that one yours there in the middle with the what, why, how? I love it. It is brilliant. And I used that for my stop. I said, what? I want to stop the mindless scroll. Why? Because it's kind of rotting my brain, right? It's that instant, the quickie dopamine stuff. And if I do a lot of reading around dopamine and neuro kinds of things. And it's really bad for us because dopamine kind of just wants you to get the next hit. So that's why you continually keep scrolling. And then that's also where I see the ads for things that I buy. So I get that unintentional spending, that impulse spending. So I'm like, so why? That's why. And then how? I just need to delete the social media apps off my phone. I could potentially look at it on the computer, but that's a much different, like I have to be sitting in front of the computer. It's not a like standing there and can search, right? So other ideas. You notice there's kind of a lot of phone ideas in some of these. So maybe you want to focus on a particular area of growth like relationships or health and wellness, decluttering, core values, finances, education, habits, maybe your word of the year, maybe this idea of change. And I know people are saying like I'm a victim, like it really isn't your fault. I'll be honest. On social media, they are engineered specifically to make your brain want more. And there's a lot of science around what it does to your brain. And I don't want to say it's completely not your fault because you can delete it and nobody's, forcing you to do it. But there's a lot of mental brain science around it, what it is. Yeah. And you get addicted to it because your brain wants more. So it's one of those things where you have to be like, okay, I'm not doing this anymore to myself. And what else could I be doing? I could be knitting. I could be sewing. I could be chatting with friends. I could be writing my pen pal. I could be working on my Silk and Cinder book club on Fable, right? There's all these other things that I think have much better return than the scroll. So I will be quiet. I will play some music. I will let you work on these pages. Let us know if you'd like your wins, challenges, favorite moments, the start, stop, and continue. And then we will check back in and see how things are going. All right. Well, thank you all for sharing in the chat. I had to pause for a moment because I don't know if it was in the music or if it's outside. There's like this weird froggy, I don't know what noise. No, it's outside. There's a very weird noise outside. I'm like, I'm not sure what it is. And I think this is such an important time to spend reflecting on the month, right? And sometimes, like Nicole is saying, sometimes our challenges, when we write them down, and Nicole, I know you're going through some tough times right now, like that, it sucks. And it sucks to see it on paper, and it still hurts because it's still there, it's still raw. But giving ourselves the courage to face it and see it and not try to numb out or try to ignore it or try to push it away is so, so important. And it's hard, right? It is really hard, but that's how we grow, right? That hard stuff, that sticky stuff, that scratchy stuff that we think about, we write it down. And that's why we do it, right? That pen to paper. Yeah. And so kudos to you, hugs to you. If we were there, we would all give you a big hug to write down those challenges, to just, look at them. They are what they are. And sometimes sticking to the facts, right? What are the facts of the challenge? Don't put the emotion into it. What is a fact? X happened, Y happened, Z happened, right? Not putting any blame on you, not putting any blame on another person. Just like, what are the facts and how can we get through? And yes, your feelings are there, right? And you feel it, and it's a thing, right? But you're acknowledging it. You're not trying to pretend it's not there. You're not making excuses for it, right? It is there. And so that's so important to do that, and to also think about, yes, the wins and the favorite moments. And I think that's the other thing that's important, right? Even the things that are hard, even though we have the challenges, we do have the wins and the favorite moments. So I'm so yay everyone for just spending some time thinking about that, because I know it can be a little tricky. And sometimes we do want to rush into the next month, but it's good that you've taken this little pause to think about that. And now we're going to think about, what are those intentions that we want to set for the month of March. And I do want to caution you, sometimes if things have been tough, maybe you only want to focus on one of these areas. Or if you're new to Silk and Sonder or relatively new, maybe you only want to pick one or two of these areas. You don't necessarily want to set intentions for everything. It can be a little overwhelming. So I loved this little thing that Jennifer O had found, where it has Magnificent March, Mindfulness March, Meditation March. Bailey and I were talking about the power of meditation and how it's so easy to kind of get away, like, oh, I don't have time to meditate, but how much better it makes our mind work and makes our body feel. Make It Happen March, Motivation March. I think those are all great things to really kind of think about there. And yeah, we are on page 9 now. So just know that these 6 categories are just starter categories, right? These are some ideas of things that you can focus on, set intentions on. You can always change them up. So we have spiritual health, personal life, physical health, key relationships, money management, and professional goals. So you could use the theme of change to set your intentions. Some people will write like, I am going to change my physical health by dot, 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 and what they want to do. Maybe you want to use some songs or some lyrics that really inspire you in those areas. Sometimes I will even Google, like if I have a favorite author, I will Google, what does that author say? What are some quotes by that author about physical health, right? And kind of see what comes up. Those are kind of fun to do. How do you want to feel this month in each area? Maybe I just want to put some stickers in there, just do some colors, some images, something in there. Maybe you want to think about one thing you want to let go of and one thing you want to start doing in each of those areas. So here's some examples of things that folks have done to kind of switch up the categories. Again, remember, you can change this up. This is your journal. We are not coming to knock on your door and grade your journals, right? I promise you, this is what works for you. So maybe you want to change something up. You want to add in like mental health or connections as a category, or things like learning goals, creative goals, hobby goals, holiday goals. I know sometimes for professional goals, when folks are retired, they say, well, I don't necessarily, I'm not working. I don't necessarily have a professional goal, quote unquote. So thinking about different ways, gardening goals. I know a lot of folks are starting, getting those gardens ready, getting that, getting the earth all ready to accept some new seeds and give us some fun zucchinis or cucumbers or tomatoes or whatever you like to plant. Maybe you want to think about time management or home management. Maybe you want to think about some personal fun or some family relationships, or maybe you want to focus on heart health or brain health. Also, sometimes the theme, when you think, like the awareness for each month. So it is National Women's History Month, Irish American Heritage Month, National Reading Awareness Month. I've been pushing a lot of reading things. I put up a big poster in our work break room in the lunchroom that people can write in books that they've read and color it in. And there's 75 spaces. And I said, once that happens, I will pay for a pizza party. Because remember when you used to get personal pan pizzas when you read a certain number of books? I feel like we need to bring that back. I feel like reading is important. So bringing back the books, bringing back the pizza parties. It's also Multiple Sclerosis Awareness Month. So I have a sister who has MS. And so definitely is something that is important to kind of think of if there's any fundraising events or, those kinds of things that you want to work on. So here's some examples of things folks have done. Some people don't always want to commit immediately to writing it in their journal. So they have little sticky notes until they've decided that they're good with their intention. And some people do some fun little doodles and drawings. Again, change those intention categories to fit your life: money management to home and garden management, personal life to creative life, professional goals to learnings. Maybe you want to do a little scrapbook style. Maybe you want to put in some stickers. Maybe you're focused on your word of the year. So this person's word was bloom. So they were kind of saying bloom through whatever in each of those areas. So that's a great idea. Maybe you want to have statements that support your intentions. So you will say things like, I will, ... or I commit, I can, I intend, I am. So maybe it's a little statement there. The more or less category is, again, a big winner, I think, for a lot of folks. Like to do some different things there. Maybe you just want to have a single word for each one of those. They have under professional goals, they have action, home management, they have organize, those kinds of things. I love everybody's kind of talking about the personal pan pizzas. And do they still do that for reading? I think they should. I feel like somebody who knows somebody needs to get back in touch with Pizza Hut or Domino's or somebody and say, like, what can we do to encourage that? Get the personal pan pizza or something fun like that for reading. Maybe just have some simple statements. Again, song titles, intentions, and action items. Excuse me. Some quotes. Again, quotes are always good to kind of put those in there. I like this one. They used ambition was the theme. And so they had ambition too. And they had some fun little stickers. I love the little water jar with like the lemons and cucumbers in there to drink their water idea to remind them of that. And then the one on the left, they say ways I want to show up for myself. And that's another fun way to think about that and to bring that forward. And then I also did put in, speaking of pancakes, there is a pancake day. I'm not sure when in March, but I know, who was it that said their dog ate their pancake? Maybe the dog decided it was their pancake day. We do have daylight, say Amanda. Yeah. Is it Tuesday is pancake day? Okay. We also do have daylight saving time next Sunday, which I'm not a huge fan of, but anyway, it's there. March Madness is coming. We've got St. Patrick's Day. We've got the spring equinox, new book releases, cherry blossoms, 60-degree weather. We've been having that anyway. Daffodils, snowdrops, and crocus. And I really like this one. My new life goal is to have a TV show like Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives, except it'll be called Bookstores, Beverages, and Besties. And I'll meet up with book friends in a new city each episode, and we will visit a different bookstore and have a beverage. How awesome would that be? I would love, if I won the lottery last night, and maybe I don't even know because I haven't checked the numbers. If I won the lottery last night, I am totally doing that. And I will tell all of you, and I will come to your city and we will do a bookstores, beverages, and besties. I think that would be super fun. So do I have another one? No. Okay. So I am going to go through these. I will let you work on your intentions on page 9 and let us know if you're changing up any of the categories, what kinds of things you're going to be doing with these intentions, and we will just keep moving on.
Oh, right. Such great ideas there in the chat. I love Hannah said that her personal life intention is to chase wonder, not perfection. And that is a great motto, right? That is a lovely chasing wonder. I just think that is so fun. Wonder, whimsy, just joy. I had put for my personal life intention, I said, joy, live like Alyssa Louis. She is like so amazing to see her, that skate that she did. I actually put a wallpaper on my phone that's that picture of her from above when she's doing the little spinny thing. I don't know what the technical terms are for ice skating, but it's that picture of just pure joy radiating from her face. I was like, what would that feel like? What would it feel like if I could look like that every day when, with what I was doing? And not all the time, right? Because we're not always in a constant state of joy, but I love the idea of working toward that. So thank you all for sharing these ideas of what you're going to put in here for these intentions. Now the trick is to remember to look back at them throughout the month. I have a tendency, I spend a lot of time and make a lovely little intentions page, and then I never look at it again for the month. So this is always a good one to put on your habits and activities section in your weekly. Remind yourself to at least once that week, go back and look at your intentions, see how they're working out, see how your behaviors, your actions are helping you with that intention, or if you need to update these intentions, right? Sometimes we have to kind of switch things up. And I saw some folks said they found some good stickers and things that they could put in this space. So excellent job. So let's move over to our trackers, right? We've got our mood tracker and our habit tracker.
We are going to work on our mood tracker first on page 10. And I always love to find these fun little, like, what's your mood today? Or, which one are you? So I always think this would be a good thing to kind of print out, and you could put there on your mood tracker and just decide each day kind of which one are you. We've got some sixes and sevens going on here this morning. I think maybe I'm like a two, or maybe the five. I don't know. Savannah's a six, and because she's got a cold. Blah. I hope you get better. I know there's a lot of crud kind of floating around out there, so we've got lots of different, a lot of folks on threes, right? And I always think this is kind of a fun thing to use, or a helpful thing sometimes to use, especially, yes, with students, right? Because sometimes it's hard to articulate your mood, but sometimes a picture is worth 1,000 words, right? And so that can really help. So if you have one of those fun little printers, printing out something like this and putting it in for your mood tracker, I think might be very helpful when you're not quite sure what words you want to use. But that picture, I really love number 7. I feel like number 7 happens quite a bit in my life. So this is going to be a circle month. I know we have our team circles and our team hexagons. We kind of alternate between those sometimes. And I know some people prefer one over the other, but we're going to kind of take a deep breath. And if we're a team hexagon, we're going to embrace our team circle this month and know that team hexagon will show back up again at some point. And then some people will ask, like, why do we track our moods? Why do we do this? Well, the idea is we want to identify those patterns in our mood. Maybe we might notice we feel anxious before a work week starts. It can help us develop those better coping techniques for when we're in those not so amazing moods. And maybe it can discover what's helping improve our moods. So maybe you want to pick 2 or 3 negative feelings, a neutral feeling, 2 or 3 positive feelings. Some people like to do a rate the day, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, kind of in terms of that. Maybe you somehow want to focus on that theme of change. You can also fill in every emotion that comes up that day. I feel like if I did that, my little section would be just like a blob. So a lot of times I will just do how I'm feeling at noon that day, or at a specific time. Emma says she turns hers into a pain level tracker. I'll show you some other examples of things that folks can do. This is another, if you want a mood wheel, if you want some ideas, some different words, you're tired of using the same old words, want to throw something else in there, there's this little mood wheel that you can use. And I'll go back so you can take screenshots of any of these if you want to remember. And there's always going to be the recording you can go into. So you can see some people use it for a physical care tracker. Some people do it for different activities. I've used it for crafting, or creating things where I track, like if I did some knitting, if I did some watercolor painting, if I was sewing, like what kinds of things I was doing. You can see the one on the bottom, they have irritable, anxious, and melancholy, calm, content, and energetic. So 3 of the kind of more, I don't want to say bad moods, but it's not good and bad, but these other intense moods, and then more of the calm on the other side. One person, they have a mood boost tracker. So what helps boost their mood? Fruits and veggies, taking a ride, going for a walk, worship, music, nap, fellowship, right? So ideas of what they did for that. Bailey is saying she uses hers to track replenishment, activities that are just for me and recharge my personal battery. I think that is a great thing to track as well. Here's some other just examples: a book tracker, kind of what book you're reading, anxiety levels. This is a good one to help if you're kind of tracking how you're feeling with different anxiety issues. And it's also really good sometimes with these, if you're working with a therapist, to be able to bring this in to show them, because you've got some good data. I know sometimes we feel like I'm always in a bad mood, or I'm always anxious, or I'm always stressed. And it's kind of one of those things where it's like, oh, it's not really the case if you really take some time to track. So somebody has like a food tracker, energy tracker, again, like that idea of pain, intentions tracker. Maybe you want to track if you have been working on one of those particular intentions that day, what that looks like. Again, tired, drained, angry, stressed, worried, calm, sad, happy, and then did kind of like little circles for when those feelings popped up. I think that's kind of a pretty little. They also noticed that they marked their vacation time so they could kind of see if that was a little bit different. Um, we've got, again, kind of midday and night. So they're tracking two different times to kind of think about that. Business habits. I know we have a lot of folks in here who have their own business. And so they're tracking things like making Instagram stories or making a reel or doing some different things with their business. So kind of keeping an eye on what that looks like and a way to track it. Here's some other fun little self-care workouts, spending tracker, a tough day to a great day. Again, that self-care tracker, all those different ideas. So that was just kind of a ways to repurpose some of those different ones with the ones that we showed you. So I'm going to be quiet. I'm going to let you work on your mood tracker. Let us know what you're tracking here. And I'll be honest, a lot of times I set up my mood tracker and then I do it for maybe like 5 or 6 days and then I kind of forget. So this is another one to help keep an eye on, to remind yourself to go back and do this. So I'll play a little bit of music and then we'll check back in. I know that wasn't a ton of time, and I know some folks are still working. I loved Beth had put, I mark the days my kiddo doesn't have school to track how that might impact my stress levels. I think that's a great idea to kind of think. Again, this is all about kind of noticing and naming, right? It's kind of like putting some things down. It's not saying it's bad if you have these particular sets of feelings, or it's good if you had these feelings. It's really kind of about, oh, okay, well, it looks like on weekdays I'm feeling really calm, but then on the weekends, maybe I'm feeling a little more stressed or a little more scattered. Maybe I need to do a little more planning for my weekends so I don't feel like it's kind of rushing to the end. Or if you have a lot of things you have to do, if you have kids that are having to go to different practices and games and those kinds of things, kind of keeping that there. Yeah, and Marissa says I have meh as a mood, right? MEH, or or like whatever, kind of that in between, that kind of like not necessarily bad, not necessarily good, just kind of like there. I also really like the sticker on the spending tracker where they say more money can't fix bad spending habits, right? It's like, oh yeah, that is true. We must remember our habits can actually be things that we are that are making us feel a certain way, which leads us into the idea of our habit tracker over on page 11, right? So we can maybe start doing some new habits. We can stop doing habits that don't serve us. Maybe we can write down like, don't go through the drive-through on the way home, or no Starbucks, or, if we're kind of trying to limit eating out, those kinds of things that can just be so easy to do, right? Maybe we want to continue those habits that bring us value. If you had some great habits last month and you want to bring those over this month, you do not have to come up with brand new habits, right? Bring those over. Those are great. You're still tracking those. Yes. And I gave you a little encouragement. I thought he was so cute. Build healthy habits daily. You can do it. A little encouragement. I thought that was cute. They need to make a little sticker of him because I think he would be cute to put in our journals there. Again, we can use change as our focus. We can pick a theme that we want to come up with for our habits, maybe grounded, things that help us be calm, joy, delight, continue those habits from last month. And you do want to find a balance, right? Things you know you can do versus ones that are going to be trickier. You do not have to fill in every single line, right? Yeah, Annie, now your mint plant in the kitchen window, he can be a little encouragement. And if you need some encouragement, and sometimes just one thing on one line and you want to focus on that, that's absolutely fine. I do not recommend coming up with a bunch of new habits, right? Brand new things you haven't been doing. That's too many at once. If you need a good win, maybe write down a couple things that really are already habits just so that you can track them and have that win. I always make my bed every morning. It's just something I started doing years ago and now I just do it. And even when we're at a hotel, I make the bed and my husband's like, but they're cleaning people could do that, or we don't have to make the bed. It's a hotel. And I'm like, no, this is just this. That's how I know morning is going to start, right? Make the bed. Again, we've got lots of different fun bucket list items that you could potentially put on there. And, it might be things that maybe you don't necessarily want to do it every day. So maybe you want to do it specifically on the weekdays, but not on the weekends. Or maybe there's some that you want to do specifically on the weekends. But here's some fun ones like planting something, having a picnic or an outdoor coffee break, going for a spring walk, having a spring cleaning day. Yesterday, we opened up all the windows. It was lovely. Got the air kind of moving through here. It was very nice, a nice little refresher. So don't forget about that if you have some nice weather, or even if it's still a little chilly, turn off the furnace for a bit, open up the windows for 15 minutes, let things kind of come in and refresh, and then close it back up and, hunker down in a nice warm blanket there. Here's some examples of things that folks have done, very elaborate with beautiful little coloring and details and designs that they fill in. And I love I cannot speak. Marcia is saying, instead of getting movement in, I'm being more specific, like saying a daily mile. And that is great. Sometimes we want to start out with something maybe not as specific, but we realize that it's too ambiguous. So we want to be very specific. I want to walk for 15 minutes. I want to walk after lunch every day. Those kinds of things, to be very specific. There's one over here on the right. They were tracking their intentions. So they were kind of thinking about the intentions and tracking things that they did to kind of help with that intention, to help demonstrate that intention. Again, pretty little colors, routines, different ideas. A lot of people put lots of little notes, they can put their little affirmations around. So that's a fun idea. Yeah, the swirls are kind of pretty, aren't they, Nicole? I like those. That's kind of fun with some different colors. And then the monthly versus the weekly, right? Monthly is usually things you want to track every day. The weekly are weekly habits and activities, or habities. Maybe they're only things you want to track that specific week, or they're maybe you only want to track it for a specific amount of time. We've got the little frog there to remind us to eat the frog. So maybe there's some things that they want to remind themselves every day to do the thing that is least attractive and do it at the beginning of the day so that it's done. Here's some other fun. There's before bed. Maybe you want to help set up a very good before bed routine. So you want to set up your habits to things like drink a cup of herbal tea, tidy your bedroom, write in the journal, do your little skincare, read a book, no screens, those kinds of things to help you remember. It could be your evening routine or your morning routine. And then if you haven't followed Ordinary and Happy on Instagram, or you can also subscribe to their emails so you don't have to be on the socials to get this. They have all these fun little calendars and things that you can do. So March is acts of kindness. So today was send a loved one a spring themed image with an inspirational message. So if you're doing your pen pal, I need to respond to some of my fun little pen pal letters I got. So that's a great one. Yeah, Ordinary and Happy has So many fun and great ideas that you can use. Here's some other ideas for different things that you can do. Maybe you want to declutter every day, pick a song of the day, watch the sunset, go to bed 5 minutes earlier, get up 5 or 10, 15 minutes earlier, take some deep breaths, cook a meal at home. Like those are some fun, different ideas of things you can do. Then Silk and Sonder also has on their Instagram feed some fun self habits, following bedtime, practicing gratitude, going on do not disturb during work, treating yourself for your small wins. Again, you can kind of see some different things. And notice, like the one on the bottom, they just kind of did some squiggly lines through some of the days. Maybe they were on vacation, maybe they were sick, and they're kind of giving themselves grace for that. The other thing I wanted to show you really quick, is I've seen a lot of people kind of talking about this in Sonder Club, is what can I do with my sleep tracker? I already use like a Fitbit or something like that. And I don't need to track my sleep here. So here's some things that people have done. They track their work breaks. They track like a bingo, made a little bingo list, books that they've read, made a little learning log, a cleaning log, like clean and tidy, a workout log, different things like that. Yeah, Tanya, I know the D&D, a lot of people think Dungeons and Dragons. I think it's Do Not Disturb, but it could be Dungeons and Dragons if you want to, if that's what you want to do. So I'll be quiet these last few minutes, let you keep working on your habit tracker. Let us know what kinds of things maybe that you're going to track in your habit tracker, and we will check back in and we'll wrap things up. All right. So lots of great ideas in the chat about what to use for this habit tracker. I saw a lot of us are talking about wanting to get back into our meditation habits or doing some yoga. I'll be honest, yoga is not my favorite thing. But meditation is good, but we do tend to resist it sometimes. We're like, oh, I don't have time for that, but I have time to scroll on the phone for 20 minutes. So right, it's kind of one of those where I think sometimes when I want to do something or I have something on the list, I have to tell myself when I make an excuse for, oh, I don't have time, I really have to say, why don't I have time? Like literally, it could be just 1 minute. You could do a 1 minute meditation. You could sit with your eyes closed for 1 minute, set a little timer. It is not that long and you really can't do it. If you really want to do it, you can. Right. So yeah. And maybe that is the thing, right? Phone scrolling is very passive. It's very easy to get on and do. So you have to give yourself some friction if you don't want to do it. So I think I'm going to delete the social media apps off the phone for the month of March and see how that goes. So, but I won't delete Silk and Sonder because, Sonder Club, because does that count as social media? I don't spend as much time on that as I do on Instagram. So anyway, I know. Yeah. Nicole says no. So, believe it or not, we have come to the end of our time. I know that that's impossible to believe, even though we had an hour and 15 minutes, we used that right up. So please feel free to share your planner if you feel comfortable. We love to see what you're doing. It's so inspiring to other folks. And don't worry about, oh, my handwriting isn't great, or oh, it's kind of sloppy, or my drawings are kind of goofy, right? Like we love to see it, and you never know who you're going to inspire. So be sure to share that. Also, just another quick reminder about our Women's Month celebration activity that's coming up. Bailey is plopping lots of links there in the chat for things that so the recording, you can access that. I will also put my Spotify playlist in there for you if you want to. That's the one I kind of go through and use for any of the socials that I do. Any of those kinds of things. So we would love to see you again. I will be on tonight with Jennifer O. Will be on camera. I will be behind the scenes doing our weekly setup. So love to see you there. And I will send some more information once I figure out, make sure I get this book club thing set up for myself. And again, remember, it's going to just be me. It's not going to be like an official Silk and Sonder thing. So just so you know. But yeah, I think book club would be kind of fun. The pen pal thing has been super fun. Book club thing is fun. It's fun stuff to do. So have a fabulous rest of your day. And I will hopefully see you again soon. Take care, everyone.